Kayaker for about 19 years. I grew up paddling at the Burloak Canoe Club, and I have a couple answers to some questions for you guys regarding sport and retirement out of sport, and what that looked like for me. So myself, again, I grew up paddling at Burloak Canoe Club when I started when I was 10 years old, and I competed there my whole life through provincial and national competitions. I went to school out in Halifax, and I moved there when I was 20 years old, and so for the last decade of my career I was mostly out east and would come back home in the summers or around holidays to train. And I made that move out east to train with some canoe clubs out there and eventually the national team while I was going to school. So the second question is about my experience with retirement. I guess for me, I made the decision when I wanted to retire a long time before I actually did. And it took me about a full 8 months of going through that decision in my head while I was still training, of if I still really did want to stop paddling at that time. So those last 8 months definitely weren't the best for me. I think I was going through a lot of things in my head of whether to continue or to stop and move on with other passions in my life. And so looking back, I think I would have done it a little bit differently. I would have tried to make a decision and have it be concrete there in the sand. But I did take a long time to make that decision. But once I made that decision, I knew it was right for me. I think it's really hard to do something where you're that invested, like a sport, like paddling, where you need to give it your 110% all the time. And if you have a little bit of your mind or body that just isn't there, I think it's time to reflect and think of what changes you can make to get back to that full level of being present. And if you can't get there, maybe it's time to think, at least for me, I knew it was time to move on and reflect on my accomplishments and all the ups and downs in sport. For me, I always wanted to have a couple different areas of my life that I was really passionate and motivated to be in my life. Paddling obviously was number one, and also going to school and having a career after sport was really important to me. So that made it a little easier when I did retire, knowing that I had something that I had also invested in. It's important to invest in yourself in multiple different ways, and I was happy that I did that in the end. And so transitioning out of sport, what that looked like for me, I think once I made the decision, it was a very quick transition. I really switched focus and focused on finishing school and started applying to jobs after I graduated. Looking back now, I think I would have tried to relish a little bit more in that time of retirement. But for me, it was easy just to make the decision and move on. That being said, it's been a little while now since I've been out on the water, and I miss it greatly. I know nationals are in Welland next summer, and I'm really excited to get back in the boat and hopefully race for my canoe club Burloak. I definitely miss getting up every day and training with my teammates and friends, but I've taken those skills and started to apply them in my career now. The last question I have for you guys is, what would be my advice to my younger self regarding retirement, and what are some tips that you think might help athletes in this process? I think my advice to my younger self would be to make a plan, because it is inevitable. I think we all at one point or another, whether it's paddling or another career, it will come to an end, maybe not completely, but it will change. And so to have a plan of of who your support system is going to be, what that might look like, what you have next, and plan that. Because if you don't, and all of a sudden you really are not engaged and not loving what you're doing anymore, and you stop, it can be really difficult. Even when you have a plan, it's difficult. So I think making those few roadmaps, if you will, for when you move on, and choose different things, that's really important. Again, tips, I mentioned earlier that I really wanted to have other passions and invest in other areas of my life, so I would give that tip to other younger athletes. I would say be kind to yourself as well. It can feel really easy, I know, for me to think I was giving up, or you think, oh, I'm being lazy because I'm not doing this hard thing anymore, but you're not. You put years and years into this sport, and that was really amazing, and it was a really hard thing to do. So I think just being kind to yourself throughout the whole process is really important. I think that's all from me. It was great to answer these questions. And definitely never hesitate to reach out to anyone during this process. If and when you decide to move on from sport, it's important to have that support group. Thanks.